these things right here just absolutely load up. We can see, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 that we're going to get just in this little spot. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Monday, June 3rd here in South Georgia, and I've got a fun video planned today. I want to show y'all some of these awesome cucumbers behind me, show you the differences in flowering habit between these two varieties. We're going to talk a little bit about how we can push vegetables through the hard times, through some disease and insect pressure, and at the end we're going to talk a little bit about succession planting. So our 2 little 10-foot plantings of cucumbers that we got right here are growing like crazy, starting to give us some production now. We've got the Katrina cucumbers over there, and then we've got the Supremo cucumbers right here. Now, before we look at some of these fruits and compare the flowering habit, I wanted to show you the difference in leaf color between these two varieties. The Katrina leaves aren't near as dark green as the Supremo over here. They're in the same plot, been given the same amount of fertilizer, just one has darker leaves than the other. The Katrina leaves were even lighter than this a week or so ago. I fed them again. They greened up a little more, but I'm guessing this is just a variety thing, that the leaves aren't quite as dark green as some other cucumbers. These plants are nice and healthy, giving us a ton of cucumbers, just not as dark green as I thought they would be. Another interesting difference between these two varieties is how they climb. Now, I've had to train both of these in the beginning on that trellis netting, but the Supremos here, once we got them trained a little bit, they've kind of stayed on the netting and started growing more vertically. The Katrinas over here seem to want to bush out a little bit more. I've had to do a lot more training with these, getting those vines on the trellis, and you can see they're not growing near as tall as the Supremos are. So this variety here just appears to be a little bit more bushy than what I'm used to. Now let's compare the flowering habits on these two varieties. So Supremo is what they call a monoecious variety, meaning it produces male and female flowers. The female flower has to be pollinated by the male flower in order for us to get a cucumber. Now, the male flowers can be tough to see sometimes because they're so small, but the female flowers are the ones that have the tiny little cucumber attached to them. So if this flower gets pollinated, then that forms into something we can actually pick. The Supremo variety here, one reason I like it so much, even though it does require pollination, it's super productive. And a lot of times we end up getting 3 cucumbers per node like we see here. So if all these get pollinated, we'll have 3 nice cucumbers just in this one spot. Now let's compare those to the Katrinas here, which are gynoecious and parthenocarpic, meaning all female flowers that don't require pollination. So with these here, every single flower gives us a fruit. All these little female flowers are going to make a cucumber because they don't have to be pollinated, which means these things right here just absolutely load up. We can see, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 that we're going to get just in this little spot right here pretty soon. So I picked my first couple Supremos yesterday, and I just snagged these 2 right here. Perfect size pickles. Another reason I like this variety so much is because it makes a beautiful little fruit here. Nice blocky shape on these, consistent shape on these. You could pickle these whole, or you could slice them up. That way you can pack more in a jar. Now, these Katrina cucumbers have been giving us more than just a few already. I picked a heap of these yesterday, and it looks like I got a bunch more to pick today. I've been trying to pick them at about this size right here, although I haven't really tested, you know, how big they can get before they get kind of spongy or don't taste that great. I've just been going by what I've seen with these at the grocery store, how big they normally sell them, and they're usually about this size, so I figured that was the size I needed to pick. We can see inside there, they do have some tiny little seeds, but they're not very big. Now, cucumber seeds have never bothered me. They do bother some people, and that's why a lot of people like these seedless varieties or varieties that don't have very big seeds. And in addition to being super productive, these right here, really crunchy and tasty. There's a lot of flavor in that right there. I'm one to put a lot of salt and pepper on my cucumbers. We really don't need much on that right there. That's good stuff. Now you may recall early in the game on these cucumbers and those enterprise squash plants there that we were seeing some early signs of disease. That was before we even put up this trellis here, but I told y'all that I thought we could push them through that, and it appears we have. And so over the years I have found that for some veggies, not all veggies, but some veggies, I can kind of push them through some tough disease and insect pressure if I've got good, healthy soil and a good feeding program. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this isn't the case for everything. We can't always push tomatoes through tough times. Sometimes tomato plants bite the dust despite our toughest efforts, but it does work for some things, particularly squash and cucumbers. Now, in previous years, I would often throw in my cucumber towel, say into July, but last year I found that I could grow cucumbers on through August, as we did in one of our no-till plots where we had some really nice soil and we also fed those plants pretty well. Now, it's important to note here that this whole idea of kind of pushing plants through tough times, I think works better when we're talking about disease pressure as opposed to insect pressure. Now, you will hear some people claim that healthy plants don't get attacked by insects as much as unhealthy plants. I've never really been one to buy into that or believe that. I think if a bug sees a healthy plant, they're just as likely to eat on it as they would an unhealthy plant. But I do think healthy plants are more resilient. They're able to withstand that insect pressure. They're growing fast enough they can kind of push through it a lot more than an unhealthy plant could. But you can have a squash vine borer take down the prettiest, most healthy squash plant you've got in your garden. That's why I really don't buy into the whole insects don't attack healthy plants thing. But having healthy plants, feeding them well, having good soil does help them grow through a lot of disease pressure, which we have a lot of down here. Also helps a little bit with the insect pressure. So feeding the plants well is one way we're able to keep them kicking and producing despite our heat and humidity down here. Another way we do that is succession planting and not trying to hang on to some plants too long. So we planted this Golden Glory zucchini in this raised bed back in the early spring. Started out with 3 plants. We're down to only 1 thanks to the squash vine borer. Now this plant here looks really nice and healthy. We've fed it well. No real disease issues thus far. Still got some squash being made down there, as we can see, but it hasn't made it bulletproof as far as the insects go. We can see some squash bug eggs right there, and there's a squash bug right there, and even a caterpillar. So the insects are still eating on this thing, but it's been able to kind of push through it because we fed it so well. We've got some nice dark green leaves here. And then our second planting of squash was in mid to late spring. We planted this enterprise variety here, and you can see these plants are absolutely beautiful. I picked these yesterday, probably gonna have to pick them again today. There's a perfect looking straight neck squash on that plant. Now I'm sure the insects will eventually get to these, and some disease may eventually get to these, but feeding them well has kept them rolling along, and we're getting some really nice production from them now. So I'm happy with what that enterprise squash is doing for us now, but I know it won't be doing it for us forever, and that's why right here I'm going to plant some more squash in the next day or 2. So we've got enterprise growing now, and then probably tomorrow I'm going to plant some grand prize, which is a very similar variety to the enterprise. The plants look almost identical. It's another yellow straight neck squash, but grand prize has a lot more disease resistance than enterprise does, which makes it fitting for that third planting that we do. It can handle a little more of that heat and humidity that we're going to be getting as we move into the meat of summer. Now I realize not everybody has room to do 3 plantings of squash, or even time to do 3 plantings of squash by the time the middle of summer rolls around. But the concept is what's important here. We want to feed those plants as best we can so they can push through some of that disease and insect pressure, but when it eventually becomes too much, we want to have plan B and even plan C sometimes in place, so we don't have to hang on to those sickly looking plants. We can get them out of there, and we'll have some more coming right behind them ready to produce for us. So although those cucumbers are doing really well for us right now, I know those are not going to make it all the way through the summer. So as soon as I can figure out where I can put some more cucumbers, I'm probably going to plant some more, probably another little 10-foot stretch of each variety, because I'm already a big fan of both of these. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and let me know in the comments below what vegetables you found that you can really push to kind of grow through some disease and maybe even some insect pressure. And as always, you can find those Katrina cucumber seeds along with seeds for several of the other varieties I showed you today, and the stuff we're feeding those plants with on our website at lazydogfarm.com. And if you want to see those cucumbers that we were able to grow through the heat of summer last year, watch this video right here and we'll show you just how good they look. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.